the next thing that I wanted to speak about, which for me is the biggest win with GenAI, which is turning your business users into what we call citizen data analysts. So a lot of you might have thought, maybe we need to start hiring a data analyst. We've found we've agreed a budget of £30,000-40,000. We've gone to market, we've got a data analyst, and they've started. And I've heard countless stories of people saying, yeah, we had a data analyst start on Monday, and so far they've just told us nothing, just told us everything we don't want to know. They've told us everything that they find important, but it's not business critical. It's got no business relevance. Yeah, it's great. They've done some good analysis and machine learning, and they predicted X, but we don't care about that. So they don't really have that domain industry knowledge that you probably need in a good data analyst. But who does? Your existing business users. So if you go into your finance departments, you go into sales departments, no one knows that department of that business better than your existing business users. And you're never going to find that with a data analyst. Data analyst career paths are usually they study maths, physics, chemistry. They go on, they might do computer science at university, then they fall in love with data, and they go on to become data scientists and engineers. They've never had that sort of commercial awareness or training. So by implementing generative AI technologies, you can now combine the two. You can now empower traditional business users with GenAI technology so they can start asking business questions and converting that into various data analysis techniques and ultimately potentially machine learning without the initial training cost of having to put them through a 6-month data analytics training program. So that's all well and good, but what does it look like? So imagine you do go to one of these business users and you've identified them because they're quite proactive, they want to get involved with new things, and they always have business questions. And for me, whenever I see data questions, they're always trying to get them answered by IT because IT have access to the raw data. But IT aren't really data literate. They don't want to give you answers or do analytics. If the server's up, they're happy. So normally they go unanswered. So by using generative AI, anyone in your company can start asking questions like this. So I want to know how many unique customers have visited my online store in the last 30 days who have made a purchase. So if you think about your business data in your own businesses and where that would be located and where you would have to go to find it, well, if you had a generative AI model that operated amongst that and it had access to finance data and sales data and so on and so forth, it could run a very simple SQL query like that to go and find it. So for everyone in the room, you might be thinking, oh, not code, we don't really want to be looking at that. But this is what we call SQL, which is a database querying language. And that's how we would write it as data analysts or data scientists, data engineers. We would be writing SQL queries. Now, to try and get a traditional business user to learn SQL, quite significantly challenging, especially across the organization. But if you can ask a question like that, a typical business question, and it can create it for you, you can then go and execute that and get the answers yourself instead of asking IT or asking your manager or ultimately just never having the answer to your question. So these are the main benefits I think GenAI offers, not so much the poem writing. So another one that I want to show you is, please can you select customer account IDs and names from the sales data that are serviced by me, Elliot Fern, and join them with finance data, including payment terms and days, and list them in descending order from highest payment terms and days from highest to lowest. So essentially what we're doing is we're trying to do something that a lot of business users struggle with, which is merging data. A lot of people download a report from sales, download a report from finance, and try and find a way to mangle it together to eventually do this, and then they're going to filter them and so on and so forth. But by getting AI to do it, you can then turn it into the SQL query, which is what we would write if we were doing it, and then you can go and execute that. So essentially what it's doing is exactly what you asked. It says select customer account ID, customer name and payment terms from this location and join it with finance data on this common column. So you have two columns in each data set that you can combine the two on. Join it on that, but I only want the data returned when it's serviced by me. So if I'm an account manager and I want to start looking at these things, I don't really care about Jack and Jill's data, I only want mine. And then also order it by payment terms and days. So maybe I want to start looking at which of my accounts have the greatest payment terms, but I don't have access to that because it's in the financial data and things like that. I also don't know how to write a SQL query because I'm just a general business user. I've never had any of this kind of training. And as a business manager, managing director, you're thinking, well, God, trying to train every user to become a data analyst and start writing in SQL and Python is going to be significantly challenging. So with GenAI, you can just turn that into that to get your answer. And then you might be thinking, well, I also don't want it in a table. So then you can say, can you create a line graph that tracks sales data over the past 6 months, but filters out all sales data that isn't serviced by me? And it remembers who I am, so I don't have to tell it again what my name is. And yeah, of course, it can create the graph. Now, for me, this is a very ugly graph, and you can tweak things like this, and you can also tell it, drop the grid lines, remove this, I don't want the titles, like you can do in Excel, but you don't need to know where in Python or SQL code you would change those settings. You can just ask generative AI to make the changes for you. So you can start thinking like a data analyst, start thinking like a data scientist, and start asking business questions to GenAI to return the results without you needing all the training.